Hey YouTube, Random Gene here. Hope everybody's doing well. So today's video I'm going to talk about storing water. I thought it would be a good idea to store a few gallons of potable water for emergency use. You know, sometimes the local water service department, they'll be working on the system. They could be performing maintenance or whatever, and they will issue a water boil advisory for certain neighborhoods or areas or towns. Because I guess contaminants got into the water system while they were working on it, and they want you to boil the water to be safe. But I figured, you know, with a large-scale weather event or a land disruption causing a lot more contaminants to get into the water system, you know, an advisory could last a lot longer than 1 to 3 days. So I figure it would be good to have at least some water stored, ready to go, so you don't have to boil it. It's typically only meant for when the water is going to be used for consumption. It'll be safe for bathing, for cleaning, but for cooking and drinking, that's when they will advise you to boil the water. So keeping a few gallons around and ready to go for cooking and for drinking avoids the need to having to stop and boil the water during these advisories. You know, you just pour it and use what you have stored. Storing water long term requires you to treat the water to prevent bacteria and viruses from growing. This keeps it fresh and ready to go for when it's needed. I'll be using regular household bleach to treat the water that I'm storing. There's a lot of information on the internet on how to treat water with bleach for long-term storage, but the best and easiest I found so far was actually posted by the Angry Prepper on his YouTube community page. So be sure to check out his channel, and I'll provide a link below to that. I started out by purchasing 3 5-gallon military water cans. These military water cans are also known by the abbreviation MWCs, or jerry cans. They are made and sold by a company called LC Industries. LCI also makes these under contract for the U.S. military. A second manufacturer for these military water cans is a company called Scepter. The Scepter military water cans and the LCI military water cans, which I have, are nearly identical to each other. The water cans that I purchased cost about $25 online at www.buylci.com. I'll put a link down below to the website. Color options included olive drab and desert tan being the color that I purchased. The company LCI, it's a very large employer and supporter of the blind, so purchasing from them is definitely a good cause. The water cans have an approximate fill opening of about 4 inches. There's a pour spout of about 1 inch in diameter and an air bleed valve. The pour spout and air bleed valve are integrated into the cap of the fill opening. When it came time to fill the water cans, I certainly could have filled them from the outside hose spigot connection, but water on the inside of my house is filtered and then run through a water softener system to remove any hardness from the water. So I figured using the filtered softened water from inside the house would provide a slightly higher level of protection for the long-term water storage. Luckily, the output of my water filter softening system has a regular hose connection, which made filling the water cans with the softened filtered water quick and easy. I then moved the water cans into the garage and proceeded to add the bleach required for long-term storage. The Clorox bleach that I'm using has actually 7.25% hypochlorite, which falls just over halfway in between the 6% or 8.25% that most other bleaches have, or what most instructions tell you to use. So I'm going to follow the amount of bleach for 8.25%, which is about 1/4 teaspoon for 5 gallons of water. Since I'm not storing this longer than 6 months, I'll probably change out the water every 6 months. I'm just going to go with the quarter. If I store water for more than 6 months, I'll probably add a quarter plus another eighth of a teaspoon, just because it is going to be sitting there longer. But 7.25% to 8.25% hypochlorite, not that much of a deal, especially when you're only storing it for a few months. The other thing is you want regular bleach. Don't get splashless. Don't use scented bleach. Who knows what they put in those bleaches to make it like that, and you really don't want that in your drinking water. So to add the bleach, I used a regular kitchen household measuring spoon in a 1/4 teaspoon size. I dipped it right into the bleach and poured that into the water can. After the first water can, I then moved on to the second water can, added the bleach, and did the same for the third water can. The LCI 5-gallon water cans I'm using are quite sturdy. They're robust, well made, and seal up nicely. But I did want to provide a little bit higher level of sealing protection on the caps, and that higher level came in the form of adding O-rings to all the caps on each of the water cans. So I searched online and various online forums, and I easily found the correct sizes that I needed to add to the caps on the LCI water cans. For each water can, this included a 13/16 by 1 1/16 inch O-ring, a 3 3/4 inch by 4 inch O-ring, and a 7/16 by 5/8 inch O-ring. I ordered these from the oringstore.com. If you do order O-rings, make sure to use FDA approved food grade Buna N 70 O-rings, also known as just Buna N nitrile or NBR synthetic rubber. I began by taking the smallest of the 3 O-rings and stretched it over the air bleed valve cap. Then pushed the O-ring down till it seated itself around the stem. By opening the air bleed valve a few turns to the left, air is allowed to enter the water can while allowing water to pour smoothly from the 1-inch spout. Closing the air bleed compresses the O-ring, creating a nice tight seal. Next, I took the medium-sized O-ring and pressed it into the cap of the pour spout, making sure it seated itself around the inside edge of the cap. Then lastly, I used the largest O-ring, pressed it into the large fill opening cap while making sure the O-ring seated itself in the inside edge of the cap as well. I did this for all 3 water cans and made sure the caps were on tightly afterwards. Well, I don't see any immediate leaks and everything's dry, so that's always a good thing. So I've read in a couple of posts and blogs and whatnot that you shouldn't store water in 5-gallon plastic containers and put them on concrete. Since I'm storing the water in my garage here, I'm going to put them up on top of this plastic bin that I have. And if I ever have to move these and store them somewhere else on the floor, I'll just cut a piece of wood and lay it on the floor. I don't know if there's much truth to not storing it on the concrete or what exactly that reason would be, but nonetheless, can't hurt to just follow that direction. It's not that big of a deal. Just put it on a piece of plastic bin right here or a piece of wood when the time comes. You know, another thing you're going to want to consider when storing the water is temperature. Up here in the Northeast, it's below freezing for a good part of the winter. And if you're going to store it outside or in a shed, it's going to freeze into a block of ice. And when you need it, do you really want to have to go through the hassle of defrosting it? But luckily in this garage, it is heated. But if you have a garage that isn't heated, that's just something to consider. Okay, everybody. Well, that's my video for storing water long-term and treating it with bleach. Let me know if you found it useful. How much water do you store yourself? Should I do anything different? let me know down below in the comments, as they say, and I guess I'll catch up with you next time in the next video. Stay safe, everyone. Stay well.